Are you losing every single match as demon? Are you just getting pub stomped constantly? Well, thankfully, I'm here to help you, enlighten you, give you some general knowledge on how to play demon and play demon at its best. So, join me as I explain how to play demon. Now, before I discuss general knowledge and strategies to use as demon, let me get you into the mindset of one, right? So as a demon, you're on your own, unlike a survivor. A good survivor works in a pack. They watch each other's backs and make sure that everyone's doing fine and they help each other when need be. But as demon, you're on your own at all times. So as a demon, you need to strategize a bit more. You need to pick and choose your targets. Choose what units you spawn. Choose what units you possess. So just remember, demon requires a lot more thinking when you play it. So, when playing demon, you want to analyze the situation and decide what's your best course of action according to the moment. And when the moment changes, learn to adapt as quickly as possible. One more really important thing about playing the demon, and that is leveling up your demon. Now, an underleveled demon is very weak and stands very little chance against even slightly leveled survivors. So I'd recommend just gaining spirit points and spending them on your demon to level it up until you max out a demon, or at least get it to like level 30. Because believe me, having a maxed out demon really makes a huge difference. Like, it is very, very fucking important. So I'd recommend just waiting to play demon until you max out at least one demon that you like best. And yeah, that's really it. But with that out of the way, let's finally just discuss my general knowledge of demon. Alright, so now let's discuss actually playing the demon. And I think it's best to start off with, how you should play the game from start to finish. So, starting off is the map collection phase, which is when the survivors are collecting the map pieces. Now, as a demon, your job is to technically stop them from collecting all 3 map pieces, but more often than not, they're probably going to collect all 3, because, that's just how most games work. So, what it should really be is just wearing them down and running through the resources as quickly and as early as possible. So, optimally, you want to find the survivors early on in the game and start attacking them as quickly and as early as possible. Now, depending on the map, that might be easier said than done, but for some maps, that's quite easy. Now, there are some tricks to finding survivors super early and quickly. Like, first off, let's say you're on Castle Kandar, and you just spawn in. A good way to tell where survivors immediately are is based on their fear levels. So, on the Castle Kandar map, if survivors' fear levels start immediately rising as soon as the game starts and they don't ever go down, you know they're down in the bottom south side of the map. So, where Vasquez Cemetery and Palace Ruins are. That is a dead giveaway that survivors are there, and you can pretty quickly just go down there and start kicking some ass. Now, if fear levels are inconsistent, and let's say one person's is rising, another one's lower, someone's rises, and then it goes back down, they're probably either on the right side or left side of the map. Either the Castle Kandar or Goldtooth Homestead or Vengeance Village area. That's typically where they are. So just go between the two, just check, and if they're not there, there are a few other oddball areas like the smithy and stuff like that they could spawn in. So that might throw you off a little bit, but honestly, it's not that hard to find them on that map. So it's just a matter of just tracking those fear levels and then immediately telling where they are. Now let's say a map like the Nobi Cabin map. it can be a little bit harder, but it's honestly not that hard. Now, a good survivor might be able to sneak by you on that map, but the map's really just a straight line, so finding them's not that hard. Another good strategy to tell where they are is looking at where the Kandarian Dagger and map piece spawned. If you just look at those two spots, you can kind of deduce where the survivors will be and where the survivors won't be, right? Let's take a look at this map. So, the Kandarian Dagger and Lost Pages spawned here. I spawned up here, and survivors don't spawn around the pages or the dagger. So survivors are probably going to be in this big area over here away from them, because the game typically spawns survivors away from the Kandarian Dagger and Lost Pages. So finding them on the Nobi Cabin map isn't that hard. But on the big map, let's look again. Kandarian Dagger here, Lost Pages there, me there. That whole huge area, that is all the room that they have to work with and where I have to search. So finding them then will probably be a lot harder and much more difficult. This map is probably the least demon friendly. It is the most survivor sided and the most difficult map for any demon player to play. And it really fucking sucks. But yeah, that's it. Finding them super early on is very important because of one thing. You can wear them down, run through the resources, and most importantly is gaining levels. Attacking survivors gets you levels. If you can down one, that's even more levels earned. Kill one even, that's like a guaranteed level. So yeah, it's very important that you find them as early and as quickly as possible, because the early game can really make or break the end game depending on how it plays out. Let's say you attack someone and the support uses a Shemps. That Shemps they used then could have been Shemps used later. That Shemps might have been the game breaker. Now, of course, survivors do have ways of getting around being attacked early game, like cars, window vaulting, but those are only really delays, right? A good demon player is able to keep up on them at all times. Like if they get in a car, you just possess it, drive off and flip it, right? That's always a good strategy, even if it's a little hard early game with the whole spirit point thing. But generally speaking, this part of the game is probably the easiest. And if you get good enough at this game, you can just wipe people out before they even reach the pages or dagger. Now, it's not likely to work against the professional, like, level 400 survivors, but casual players probably won't stand much of a chance, because the early game is when survivors are at their most vulnerable, right? They have the least amount of loot, they're not upgraded, so attacking early game is vital. Now, a final strategy, and this one's probably the most viable on the huge map, and that's just trapping as many things as you can early game in the hopes that people trip them later. Also, trapping stuff gives you XP, so if you can't find survivors, just trapping as much as you can so that you can hopefully reach level 10 before they do the pages or dagger. That's also a viable strategy and is one that sometimes I do on the huge map. And if you're lucky, they might just give themselves away in the huge map. But on maps like the Nobi Cabin map or Castle Kandar, it's not as viable. Although I will say in Castle Kandar, if you do want to quickly run through Fort Gort and trap it as much as possible, because there are a shitload of chests there, which gives you a lot of XP. Like, I think one chest, when you're like below level 10, is maybe a third of your upgrade bar filled out when you trap an individual chest. So yeah, trap any chest you see as well. That's just a good general rule of thumb. Trap any and all chests you find. Now, when you find survivors early game, what you want to do is, a lot of people will tell you this is really scummy and that they hate this and that this is a abuse of power. And that's just, I'm just going to tell you right out that those people are fucking stupid. What you want to do is possess as many basics as possible and attack as many survivors as possible. So just possess a basic, possess a basic, attack, and attack, and attack over and over and over again. Possess, attack, possess, attack. Just get that in your head. Possess, attack. It doesn't matter if you do a whole lot of damage. It's just slowly wearing them down, and you're gaining XP for doing it. So just keep doing it, keep doing it, and keep doing it. And if you're lucky, you might down one. If you're super lucky, you might kill one. So just keep doing that over and over again. It's a good rule of thumb for the beginning game. Okay, so they've made it past the map pieces, like most people do, and they've reached the Kandarian Dagger and Lost Pages. Now, this is where the real game begins for demons. When you're in this situation, you want to go into full attack mode. You're going to possess as many things as possible. You're going to spawn as many units as possible, right? If you're not possessing units, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You want to possess as many things as possible and attack constantly. You also want to choose targets specifically. I'll get on that later. So possessing units is very important. Depending on your skill tree, you might want to possess some kind, like basics more than elites, right? If you have a very basic catered build, you want to possess as many basics as possible. If you have an elite catered build, you want to possess as many elites as possible. And hopefully you're level 10 before you reach these objectives, so spawn your boss in as quick as possible. Now, another really important thing is getting down as many units as possible and trapping the surrounding area. So the more units there are, the more bogged down people will be, and the more bogged down, the more chaotic it gets. People will lose focus. You can attack someone's teammate and they won't notice because they have 3 basic units right in front of them attacking them at once. Believe me, the AI bog is a very good strategy, and it especially works with certain other demons like Warlord and Necromancer. So spawn in as many as you can. It will definitely mess survivors up big time. And another thing is you want to be using your abilities as much as possible, right? If you're playing Puppeteer, power possess as often as you have it. And if you're playing Necromancer, use that flute. Always be using that flute. If you're not using that flute, you're stupid, alright? And don't spawn the flute right in front of the action. I think you can place the flute, like the base flute, at least 30 meters away. I think it's 30 meters. I could be wrong. But with the upgrade in the skill tree, I think it's called Flute to Kill, you can place up to 55 meters away. So place it as far away as you can. That's a very good ability. Being able to place that flute as far away as you can is a huge detriment, because someone in the survivors are going to have to go run off from the rest of the group and attack the flute. So either you can use that as your time to attack the main group while someone's off running around trying to get the flute, or you can use it as a time to kill the one guy that separated from the group and is now on each target because he's alone. So yeah, using your abilities is very important. They're there for a reason. They make a difference, a huge difference. They can change the tide of battle in the right situation. Now, another really important thing, and this is probably the most important, and that is choosing your targets. If there's a support, you probably want to target the support. Or if you know someone's lower leveled or is really bad at dodging, keep attacking that person. Their support is going to have to use Shems on them no matter what. Now, that's not to say you leave everyone alone, but if everyone's super good, choosing the weakest link is generally a pretty good ability. Now, another tool you have is possessing survivors. If a survivor's fear is high enough, you can possess them and use them to attack their teammates. It also does a little bit of damage to survivors after you're done possessing them. Now, the survivors you probably want to target most for possession are warriors and hunters. Hunters do the most range damage, so you can really fuck up teammates from far away, depending on the weapon anyway. But I mean, if it's a legendary shotgun, their teammates are going down in 1 to 2 shots anyway. And secondly, the warriors have the highest melee damage. And if a warrior's using a weapon like a hunting knife, you're going to be constantly stun locking whoever you're attacking. So it's it's a pretty big deal. So choose who you possess carefully. And if you're possessing someone that's in the middle of a crowd of teammates, they're probably going to get kicked out pretty quickly. So generally you want to choose the most powerful and choose to possess them when they're most vulnerable to possession. Or another really good strategy is if someone starts an objective and they're on their own and they have a really high fear level and you just really don't feel like fighting them, possess them and run them off the point, because when they're off the point, the objective is going to have to be restarted. I mean, it's kind of a cheap strategy, but it works. Or if someone's entire team is down and they're the last ones left and you think they might have a trick up their sleeve, I really don't feel like trying to fight it out, possess them. If they're really low on health, they'll probably die. So do that. I mean, it's a really cheap strategy, but it works, goddammit. So yeah, that really summarizes this part of the game, and that's really it for this section of the game. It's probably the most simple. But anyway, let's move on to the dark ones.
Fuck you!
Alright, the dark ones. Now, the dark ones function pretty similar to the last objective, right? You just have to defend the dark ones, right? It's no different than defending the Lost Pages or Kandarian Dagger. The only difference is it might take longer, it might be quicker, who knows? So here again, you just want to attack and you just want to keep attacking and just never let up on survivors. That's really it. You want to run through the resources and really try to kill at least one person or run through the resources as much as possible. Also, one general tip for this spot: save your boss, right? Save your boss for the book. When you reach the dark ones, you don't want to use your boss and then have the survivors complete the dark ones and then not be able to use your boss for the book. So save the boss until you reach the book, unless you are 100% sure that they will not be reaching the book phase. It is also more imperative than ever at this objective to choose your targets as wisely as possible, especially supports or the weak links. During this objective, there are a million things going at once, and survivors can't really pay attention to everything. So if one guy is getting zoned out by you, they might not notice. And if it's the support, that's especially more important, right? Killing the support or just downing it or running through the resources will make a huge difference, especially at the book phase. So just keep attacking as much as possible and target those supports during this section of the game. It is very important. Also, I recommend that if your ability has a long cooldown, I'd recommend saving it for the book, especially like the flute or the Plaguebringer's pot ability. Save it. Save that for the book. Save that for the book as well. Okay, now we're at the book. This is probably the scariest part of the game for demons. Now, a lot of new demon players make the same mistake. They keep attacking the survivors when what you are supposed to be doing is attacking the book. Unless it's like one guy left. Sure, I guess, go ahead, but that's still a bit risky. Attack the book. Just attack the book. It's very important, right? And if you have the pot ability here as Plaguebringer, or you have your skeleton flute guy placed far away, it's even more, it'll make this even more less of a challenge, because this is secretly one of the easiest parts of the game for the demon. You will probably win almost every game at this point. This is the hardest objective for survivors to overcome. But it's only the hardest for survivors when you're attacking the book. You see, when attacking the book, everyone has to attack you at once, or else essentially they'll lose if they don't attack you at once. And when attacking the book, you want to be using the right units and the right attacks. If you have units that have an AoE attack, which damages everything in an area of effect, like the Necromancer Basics War Cry or the Puppeteer's Elite's Thunderstruck, abilities like that are crazy powerful because it'll damage the book and it'll damage any nearby survivors. And survivors during this part of the game, like I said, there's a bunch of things going on at once, so they might not be able to pay attention and they'll probably get hit. And characters that are either out of stamina or don't have a lot of dodges, like warriors, will probably be hit most times. And I said this is the part of the game where it's most important to use your boss, because your boss does the most damage and has probably the biggest area of effect when it comes to their attacks, especially their heavies. Their heavies have a big swing and will hit almost everything around them, except the puppeteer bosses. Heavies, they're terrible. Don't use them. Just don't use those. Like, let's say I'm using the Necromancer, right? I do heavy attack. I have a huge sword swing that almost hits everything in a 180 radius. It will fuck shit up big time. So just use that as much as possible. Just use your heavy attacks with Henrietta or the Necromancer or Plaguebringer. Honestly, the Plaguebringer is not very good at the book. You just want to use her elites and basics there. Now, a really good team that's coordinated will probably attack units as much as possible and kill your possessed units. So, another really important thing here is not spamming as many units as possible. You want to make sure you don't ever enter a cooldown with your unit, so just spawn one unit at once, because there's also plenty of random spawned units around the map that will run in here to attack. So just spawn your basics, right? There's essentially a whole crowd of them, and by the book phase you should probably have your basics maxed out. So spawn the basics and there you go. There's a horde of them, at least 3 to 4 of them at once, and get attacking. Now, it's also very important to know that some demons are much better at the book than others. Like the Necromancer, Warlord, and Puppeteer are probably the best. Puppeteer probably being the all-time best because his basic units explode when they die. So you get attacked and you die, guess what? You're still doing damage. Elites do a shitload of damage and have a great AoE attack that can stun everyone around them if they don't dodge it, meaning you can stun them and then get attacking while they're still in the cooldown animation from being hit. And the Puppeteer has an attack similar to the Elites that hits everyone around it no matter what, even if they're dodging or doing a finisher. It's fantastic. The Puppeteer is probably the best demon for you if you go to the book a lot. And that brings me to my final point. You should choose what demon you play based on your playstyle. Or if you lose a lot with one demon, try another, right? If Puppeteer isn't working out for you, try Necromancer, right? Necromancer probably has the greatest raw damage output of any demon. Puppeteer has some of the greatest abilities, or it has the greatest main ability in the entire game. Power Possess is crazy. Plaguebringer probably has the best boss in the game and some really crazy abilities with her characters. And Warlord's just the best all around, right? She does everything, right? Doesn't do anything particularly great, doesn't do anything bad either. It's a decent demon. It's a great beginner demon. So that's really it. So that summarizes everything with the demon. Now, there's some other crazy strategies out there, I'm sure, and there's some things I imagine I missed, but this is just basic demon knowledge that will help you go a long ways, right? I'm not teaching you how to professionally flip cars over a single fucking pebble. I don't expect you to be able to do that as a beginner. You'll learn that on your own, and you'll learn that by watching super good demons play the game, right? Some things just come in time, but this is just general knowledge of how to play the game and its objectives the best you can. And that's really the most important thing, right? Beginner demons sometimes just, don't know how to play the game and its objectives to the best of their abilities. So I hope this enlightens you and helps you understand how to play certain objectives and how to attack more efficiently as a demon. So anyway, that's it. Hope you enjoyed. Have fun out there. this is just a simple video on survivors. I'll be making a video on demons for the new demon mains out there sometime soon in the near future. Probably gonna release, I don't know, maybe Saturday or Sunday. So tune in then.